You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. Whether it's for food, fuel, drinks, or snacks, about half the U.S. population shops at a convenience store every day. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
You know, your local convenience store can act a lot like Cheers, where everybody knows your name. But do they? Do they know your name? Do they know who you are? Do they know how old you are, what you like, what you want to do? Are they looking at you for who you are or what you believe? We're going to talk a little bit about that today with our guest. So, what do I believe? What am I? Who am I? Are we all the same age?
Just introduce yourself.
I'm Carolyn Schnare with NACS.
I'm Jeff Lenard with NACS. And joining us by the magic of the internet or Skype or whatever, you can't see it.
It's the interweb.
But you can hear him. Today we have David Allison. He's a human behavior and values thinking expert and the founder of the Value Graphics database. That's a mouthful, but what it means is we're going to learn a lot about people and what you can do with your business to take advantage of what you learn.
That's a great introduction, you guys. You guys have done this before. That's amazing.
Why, thank you.
And one of the things, you have a book, and the intriguing part of that is the title, and sometimes book titles are the thing that's just like, got to get the book, great title. Your title, We Are All the Same Age. Tell us about what that means.
We are all the same age now. So I don't even know where to begin. There's so many ways to peel this onion, but I'm going to start today by telling you a little story. And it will help me illustrate why the book is called that. If that's cool with you guys, we'll start with the story. So this story is called Three Friends in an Alley at Midnight. And it's about three friends who are out drinking, and they've had a few too many drinks. They haven't seen each other for a very long time. So so it's getting close to midnight. It's time to go home. They had one more drink, and they're walking down the street now being noisy and loud and punching each other in the shoulder and singing old college songs. We've all been there, and we've all done that. And they turn a corner, and suddenly in front of them, there's a dark alley, and they have to make a decision. What am I going to do? What are we going to do? Friend number one, the only thing we know about friend number one is that the primary value for friend number one is adventure. Friend number one thinks it's a really great idea. We're drunk, I'm with my buddies, let's go down the alley. That would be a great way to end this evening. How much more fun could it be than that? And friend number two, the only thing we know for sure is the primary value for friend number two is safety, and thinks going down that alley is the most ridiculous idea. I love you guys, we're drunk. Why would we go down this dark alley? Who knows what might happen to us? Let's go back to the bar, turn the lights on, and if we need to, we can call the police. Friend number three, the only thing we know about friend number three is a primary value is friendship, and doesn't really care if we go down the alley or go back to the bar as long as we stick together, because that's what really, really matters. Now, here's the answer to your question about the book title. Those three responses to that moment in time, that same set of stimuli, all seem perfectly logical. None of them are outlier, weird things to think when you are faced with a dark alley with your buddies. But not one of those people had to check in and see how old they are, or whether they were male or female, or rich or poor, or had an MBA or 2.3 kids at home, or if they were divorced or single, or any of those demographic labels, age being primary among them, because none of that stuff really matters. The only thing that matters when it comes to understanding how people behave is what their values are. So the book is called We're All the Same Age Now because we've built this enormous global data set that proves within any demographic cohort, age included, the similarity of the people within that cohort is next to nothing. There is no such thing as a millennial. They don't resemble each other at all. Baby boomers don't resemble each other at all. I can pull out actual statistics if you want, but it seemed like a startling idea to me to start everybody down this journey around values thinking by pointing out that, in essence, we're all the same age. Age doesn't tell us anything about who anybody is anymore.
So that first friend was, first off, that was a dude. That was a dude between the ages of 16 and 80. But beside it, you're right on in that you did lead us down this path where it doesn't matter how old you are, it's who you are, and that's eminently fascinating. How does that play out in the business world? Does it affect how you hire people or how you sell to people? What are the elements related to that?
All of the above. So it really all revolves around this one simple truth from the world of human behavior and sociology and consumer behavior. And it's this one line. What we value determines what we do. So if we know what someone values, we know how they're going to behave. Now, psychologists have had it easy, more or less, for the last little while. The psychologists are all going to be angry at me for saying that, but you can give an individual an MMPI inventory or a Myers-Briggs test, figure out what their values are, and then work with that person to make sure they're living in accordance with their values and their world is all aligned properly. What we've been missing is a database large enough and specific enough so that we could understand the shared values of entire target audiences. And now we have that. So we can now look at an audience for anything, anywhere in the world, any product, service, brand, convenience stores, for example, and say, here's the people who go to convenience stores. What do they share in common in terms of values? And since what we value determines what we do, we know how to influence their behavior as much as 8 times more powerfully than if we were just using demographic and psychographic stereotypes about past behavior and whether men shop more than women and all that kind of stuff. Demographics are just a very, very antique idea from olden days when men had to behave in a certain way and women had to behave in a certain way, and social shaming was in place that if you were old, you had to do a certain thing, and if you were rich, you had to behave a certain way. Those ideas are all out the window now, but we still tend to think that a demographic description of a customer is somehow useful, and it actually isn't.
So let's think, like as Jeff was saying, so friendship. I'm going to latch on to that. That was friend number 3. So friend number 3 in friendship, like if you're a store owner, how do you, or a business owner, or a restaurant, what can you do to work with that? What does that mean?
Well, if anybody who's listening to this is going to be at the conference in Miami, I'm going to come with data from the data set and explain for people in North America who go to convenience stores at least 3 times a week what they share in common, what their values are, what their version of adventure or friendship or safety is. And once we know what those core values are for that audience of people, we're going to be able to talk about, how do we program better for them? How do we serve them better from a customer service perspective? What kind of products do they want to see on the shelves? You'll have a filter and a lens that helps you understand how they make their decisions. And then therefore you can just intervene in that decision-making process and take advantage of this knowledge.
And just to clarify, David, you're talking about the NACS leadership forum we have in Miami. It's very forward thinking. It's not about what you can do today, but what you can do to kind of reinvent and reimagine your business. And so topics like this, looking at human behavior, absolutely fascinating. Mm-hmm. Now, I think to a certain extent, the reason people focus on demographics is it's easy. It's a shortcut. I don't want to say people
You're
are
young,
lazy.
I'm old.
I can look at you and I can make a generalization. It may not be accurate, but I can do it fast. How?
And they also check the box on their loyalty program card, and it says, and how old are you in between? What's your birthday? And
right. So you can segment to this and this because it's. But values never really change and are more powerful because you can tie your brand to it. You can tie a lot of things to that, but it's a lot harder. So when somebody's listening to this and say, that's fine, but I just want to know who's old because I want to sell them those things that they sell on the nightly news for people that's medical issues or something like that.
You're talking about adult diapers, aren't you?
Whatever you'd like. Yes, perhaps.
Flip phones.
But no, things, yes, fax machines.
Jitterbug.
But how can it be something that's relatively easy to grasp in terms of taking the first step?
Listen, first let me debunk how easy demographics are. I'm going to give you a couple stats to just show you how easy we think it is, but really how ineffective it is. So we have 500,000 surveys in this data set now from around the world. 100,000 of those are from North America alone. And we've measured 420 different metrics about what people value and then what they want and need and expect around those values. So for example, if family is a very important value, it's cool to know that, but it's also cool to know what you want and need and expect for your family. So very, very robust set of 420 metrics, 500,000 surveys around the world. If we just isolate, for example, baby boomers and say, how often do baby boomers agree with each other on any of that stuff? Anything that it means to be alive and human. Baby boomers only agree with each other 15% of the time. 85% of the time, baby boomers disagree on everything. So if you look at someone and go, that's a baby boomer, therefore they're going to think this, you're have an 85% chance you're wrong. Now, if you look at millennials, our favorite group to be pointing to in the last little while, millennials only agree with each other 13% of the time on anything. So how many billions of dollars have we been spending thinking that millennials are somehow a targetable audience when they disagree with each other on 87% of everything, always, 24/7, 365, all around the world? It's a ridiculous construct to think that just because you can look at someone and understand them demographically, that somehow that helps you understand who they are as a human. All it does is help you understand whether they're blonde or a redhead or a man or a woman or young or old. And that's it. That's the extent of understanding that you have gained from those observations. So, in fact, it's actually a very difficult way to think about moving forward with any decision for a business, because you're going to be wrong 85, 86, 87% of the time, regardless of who walks into your store or who you're thinking you're serving. So let's look at it the other way around. You're trying to understand what somebody values. Now, we have some tests that we put people through. There's in my book, which I always hate this because it sounds like I'm trying to push my book. But if anybody's written and put a book up on Amazon the last little while, they understand that you make about $2 a copy. So, if everybody listening to this bought a book, I'd have enough to go buy dinner. It's not about money. In the book, there's a 10-question survey you can fill out and you can distribute to your customers. And it points you to which chapter in the book is the most relevant for your audience. So these are the 10 biggest archetypes that we found in the database. And you can use one of those archetypes to start understanding who you have as a customer and what they're all about, what makes them tick, what buttons to push, as I like to say, what values will trigger their behavior. The thing to remember is I like to say it's like playing the piano with your fists. This is a 10-question quiz that gives you some rough answers. It's not going to be pretty, that music that you play, and it's not going to be super accurate, but you know what? At least you're on the piano. Before, you were over there playing the trumpet, the demographic trumpet, and you thought you were making really good music, and you weren't. That was terrible. So let's get you on the right instrument. For the cost of a book, you can at least start driving down the right road, playing the right instrument, and start playing with values thinking as a new construct to understand your audiences.
I'm still trying to picture Jeff playing the piano with his fists through myself. I love the visual imagery here.
Well, I'm also thinking you might, if you do this well, you can kill the phrase "Okay, Boomer," because it's like, well, we're all the same age, so it doesn't matter.
You just don't like the phrase.
It's exactly. I mean, "Okay, Boomer" is as accurate as all millennials eat avocado toast. I mean, they're ridiculous. Like, we laugh about one and the other one seems to get everybody all upset, but it's true. And now you know what my fear is. I watch a marked decrease in the amount of time and energy online, on social channels and otherwise, on mass media channels. How much time we're spent picking on the millennials has started to decrease. And the reason is, I think the social media beast has been sort of digesting the millennials. They've had their meal and they're starting to wake up and go, Generation Z looks tender and tasty. Why don't we go? So let's attack those guys next. A whole new generation is about to be stereotyped in the same way that we just did to the poor millennials for the last 20 years. And it's not just about the people within the cohort, the amount of money and energy wasted talking to people about how to change your business for millennials, how to change your product for millennials, how millennials hate this and millennials are ruining that. It's all wrong. All those books, all those speakers, everybody who's running around trying to convince you that millennials are a unicorn in the enchanted forest that needs special care and feeding, they're lying to you. They don't have any data to back it up.
Well, and I mean, I'm not a millennial. I'm a Gen X, but I think like I'm close enough. I'm that, like, what do they call me? A Zennial? I'm like right in between. I'm in that age, like I was born in 1978. I'll go ahead and say it, but I'm right there in the middle. So if someone's like, "Oh, you're a millennial," I'm like, "Shut up!" And they're like, "Wait, you're Generation X." I'm like, "No, I'm not." So it's like it's almost offensive. I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm a Zennial. I made it my own thing." So but I can see where that would bug some people, and I mean, I could see where being called a boomer, okay, boomer, it might offend some people because you're like, "But I'm not. I'm not old. Well, I'm still 20."
It's being used in a derogatory way. I mean, here in Vancouver, for example, where I live, there's a very contentious issue in the public conversation, in the civic discourse up here, which is about housing. And leafy green streets with old suburban homes are starting to see the encroachment of, 3 and 4 story apartments and rentals, and they're getting very upset about it. And there's a group of people who are, we'll call them in favor of density, and a group of people who are against density. And the ones who are in favor of density, every time someone who's against it, who wants to preserve the character of the leafy green street, says anything, the comeback is, okay, boomer. Now, I'm a boomer, and I live in a condo tower downtown. I'm staring out my window right now at a whole bunch of buildings. I think density everywhere we can possibly put it is the smartest way forward for all of us. I take offense to having people characterize boomers as being against densification and against progress and against moving forward and against technology. And it's ridiculous. Some of us are, some of us aren't. Some of us couldn't care less. We're worried about, we value other things altogether.
So now that so how do you figure out what the values are? Who should you target? Like, do you just look around who's coming in every day and say like, oh, they have a lot of families, so they must like wholesome things or something like that? Like, what's an easy first step?
Easy first step is I got to go back to saying, get the book, because there is no gut level way to look at someone and figure out what their values are. You got to have a few questions that you can ask. What we've done is build this enormous database that when I get up to speak, I can share very specific information. It's not fists on the piano anymore. I'm going to get up there and play a sonata, and we're going to have precise information for everyone in that audience about what triggers the behavior of people who come to convenience stores 3 times a week or more. So we'll be able to say, this is who you're serving now. Now you can extrapolate from there and say, okay, we'd like to find some more of those folks. Cool. So we'll be able to provide that data to the entire industry. And by the way, the plan is that my slide deck, I always do this when I speak, so I don't know why it would be any different. So anybody who can't be at the leadership conference, my slide deck will be available on my website and through NACS. So it's something that everybody will have access to. This data will be available to the entire industry as soon as my speech is done. And so there's going to be the best, easiest way for people to think about this stuff. I'll have segmented the population of people who come 3 times a week or more, and I'll tell you who they are, I'll tell you what to watch for, and I'll tell you what buttons to push to influence their behavior.
So with hearing what we've heard for the last 15 or so minutes, one big takeaway to me in thinking about how you retail, whether it's convenience stores or whether you're a supplier and you're looking to sell your brand to consumers, generally people buy something when they need it, and no more so than convenience stores. They're about immediate consumption. I'm thirsty, I want it now. I'm hungry, I want it now. Gas lights on, I need to get gas. But when you get somebody on a value level, they buy things from you even when they don't need it. They support you all the time. And I would imagine, I can think of personal experiences, like you buy gas, you don't really need to get anything to eat, but you like that brand, so you go inside because they're cool people. I'm going to get this for later. And okay, I think that's kind of an interesting element.
I'm going to assume a few things here. We haven't pulled the data out yet, so this may all be wrong, but this is just my gut after working with this database and these people and understanding a values thinking approach to the world for the last 4 years. I have a feeling that this truth that the convenience store industry holds on to, which is very, very accurate, that what you sell is time. You're selling people back their time. This is a moment in our history where that's the most valuable thing of all. You have the ability to give people back time. That's an amazing benefit. So what I would be doing is thinking to myself, all right, the people who come in here are time starved at various levels of that and for various reasons. Some might be workaholics, some might be family driven folks. They all have a different reason why they're time starved. I want to set up my store. I want to think about my product lines. I want to think about the experience of how I collect cash and how I thank people and how I train my staff around reducing any friction to make this the most convenient thing possible, so that the time saving becomes more and more and more apparent. That's a value set that you'll be able to knock me over with a feather if we don't see a value around time saving come out of this research that we do for this presentation at the leadership forum. So now once you know that for certain and what the various flavors are, family driven, time saving, workaholic, time saving, who knows what the various values that are around that time saving component might be, the convenience component, we'll be able to sit there and say, okay, it's very clear now. Let's put it into a realistic perspective. You might think candy and chocolate bars are all selling to kids. That would be a stereotypical demographic assumption. I bet that if you sat back and looked at who's actually buying sugary, sweet stuff, it cuts across all demographic categories because there's a value that's being met by those things. So if we can identify why, if we can understand what those values are, we can figure out where that candy should be placed, what kind of candy and sweets you might have. You might find that you're going to do better on a dollar per square foot retail basis to have more chocolate bars and less kid-oriented candy and more high-end kind of candy. We have no idea until we figure out what the value sets are. But it's about erasing those demographic stereotypes that certain people based on certain ages or gender or income are going to come in here looking for certain kinds of things. It's going to cut across all of those demographics, whatever the value sets might happen to be.
And when you talk about values, it's beyond character. It doesn't mean like the typical way you think about value is, well, that person has no values or that person has a lot of values.
This person cares a lot about this charity or this.
It's values, yes, I think some of it applies there. But what you're saying is, what do they value in addition to what's important is part of their character? Yes.
So what's important?
Yeah, this is like it's a list of 40 core human values, personal values that have sort of been established by the world of social science as the DNA, the blueprint for humanity, if you will. If you understand how people access and use these 40 core values, you understand who they are. And if we can now apply that to entire groups of people, we can understand who that group of people are. So it's things like personal growth, experiences, belonging, trust, family, financial security, creativity. Let's say we find out that a whole bunch of the people who are coming 3 times a week, we don't ever really know why these things pop up, but that's what's so fascinating about this. We may find out that a huge segment of the population of very frequent visitors to convenience stores value creativity. What would we do with that? If creativity will get them to come down the dark alley, how can we build a convenience store experience that emphasizes creativity for them?
Soda mix-ins. Make your own flavors.
There you go.
That icy that has
creativity and
52 different
advertisements.
flavors.
Your archetype is a little more on the levity side. Things like that.
Well, there's other more obvious ones. Here's an interesting and very hopeful place to maybe spend a moment thinking. Across the entire North American data set, and it varies region to region in the world, but here in North America, the number one value, the thing we're all chasing more than anything, is belongingness. We all want to belong. We all want to feel like we fit in. So if you do nothing else, if you just say to yourself, how can I make people feel like this is their convenience store, that they belong here? You'll be doing a lot better than by sitting around saying, okay, it's boomers. We're gonna try and figure out what boomers want. They all have minivans and 2.3 children in a house in the suburbs with a white picket fence, and their daughter goes to piano lessons, the son goes to soccer, and the wife is part of the bridge club. That's who we're serving. No, you're not. You're serving people who want to belong.
Just like Cheers. It all came full circle where everybody knows your name.
Came around in 22 minutes, just like a sitcom. Started and finished at the same point. This is absolutely fascinating stuff in thinking about values and how it applies. David, we're looking forward to hearing you at the Leadership Forum in Miami. We're looking forward to staying engaged with you and picking up that book, We Are All the Same Age, because I am now, do I get to pick an age or we're all the same age, so it doesn't matter? It's an artificial construct. I kind of say it's like it's business astrology. If you're going to plan your business based on age, it's business astrology. You may as well just say my customers are all Geminis, and you'll be better off than using age at all. You can be any age you like now.
I'm going to be 32 because things didn't hurt as much then, but I still knew enough to be smart.
And you're over the age of 21.
That's true. What about you, Jeff? What are you going to be?
I don't know. Less than I am now.
David, where you mentioned that people are going to be able to find all this information on your website. What is that?
It's valuegraphics.com. Valuegraphics does have an E in it. It's just like demographics, but valuegraphics.com. There's a lot of good information there. I'm on a bit of a mission to just spread the whole notion of values thinking as a better way forward for all of us. If I can just be a bit of a evangelist for the last 60 seconds here. If you think about how everything in our world starts in a boardroom with a group of people sitting around and arguing about a demographic description for that target audience, and how everything in that room you're in right now and everything you can see and everything you've seen since you woke up this morning began that way. Those conversations are about young versus old, rich versus poor, married versus single, educated versus uneducated. It's divisive. It's a divisive construct that we've built the world on. Instead, if we can build the whole world from this point forward, based on the things we share in common as humans, we're going to have a way better world. I think that's the big story here.
I don't even know how to top that. That was amazing. Well, if you have any thoughts, feedback, go ahead and let us know on our website, too. We'll make sure we can get those over to David maybe in time for his talk in 2020. And in the meantime, thank you so much, David, for joining us. Thank you for giving us these resources. I look forward to checking them out myself. And thank you so much for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.